What's up, everybody? Steven here for Off the Shelf Movie Night to talk to you about physical media, about Blu-rays and 4Ks and DVDs and even VHS if that's your jam. Whatever your jam is if owning physical media, owning the movie that you want to own is what you're into, then you're in the right spot. So, I have to apologize to you guys. I did start my 31 days of Halloween. Oh, by the way, if you haven't subscribed, please do, and give me a like and a share. That stuff really helps get the word out about the show, and also comment. Let me know if there's things you'd like to see or talk about that maybe you haven't talked about on other shows, because there's a lot of us out here. There's some really great shows out here that I really love a lot. Be cool if we can all do a little something different. But we are all doing one thing the same. A lot of us are doing this 31 days of Halloween. So I did my first. I was going to do this weekly. So the first week was a short week, just a few days, and I did that one. And then I'm a little behind. I was supposed to do the second one this past Monday. So I'm doing it today. I'm a handful of days behind. For those of you who've been following me for a while, you may remember back in January I had foot surgery on my right foot, and that really slowed the show down a little bit. Well, this week I had surgery on the left foot. It was planned, not a big deal, stuff that had to be done, but I wasn't up and at 'em as fast as I thought it would be. Now, the plus side to that is I still have been laid up watching movies. So I've got my next week of movies here, got a whole pile of movies. I'm going to try and be a little bit brief on each of these. Hopefully, if you haven't seen these, maybe you give them a go, or if you have, comment, let me know what you thought of them. If you liked them, you didn't like them. Let's talk about horror movies, because that is what this month is all about. So yeah, I have a lot. I did my first 4 days, and now I've got through the 14th to do of this month, which is yesterday as I record this. And I'll be watching something tonight, but I'll include that on the next one. Okay? So let's just jump into what I've been watching here for 31 days of Halloween. The first thing is Green Room. If you haven't seen this movie, it is a real surprise. So Green Room is about a kind of a punk band who is just desperate, like most bands, to get gigs and play shows and have a good time and that kind of thing. Well, they had a show fall through. They had nothing to do, and through a friend of a friend or whatever, they got connected with another show. And the show was at a sort of a skinhead club, basically. So this film tells the story of what happens in the green room of said club when they inadvertently get involved in something they should get involved in. This sounds like, at first blush, it sounds like sort of maybe an action movie or, a drama. But no, this is horror. This thing has some gore in it. A couple of scenes that are just incredible. I saw this for the first time in theaters, and yeah, there's a couple scenes in here that really shocked me. I was very pleasantly surprised. Now, what's also funny is you may notice here that it stars Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard. He's playing lead skinhead here, the Darth Vader, if you will. And he's great, but he also may be one of the few weak points in this film, in that they ask him to drop his accent. And he's mildly successful. Sometimes the British accent kind of comes through, creeps in here and there. But that's a very minor complaint. This is a tight, short, fast-moving, scary-ass movie. It's really good. Must see. Green Room. If you haven't seen it, add it to your list. Next up is one of the earliest movies I remember seeing as a child, and it may be a defining factor in why I am who I am, because my parents let me by with seeing this. This is the original The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Now, there was a terrible remake in the mid-2000s, and it is terrible, but this is the Shout Factory release of the original film. So it is loosely based on a true story about a killer that in Texas who would at night come down out of the woods and kill people in this small town. And he would do that in varying ways. And this is highly, tweaked, from the real story. But one of the things that makes this movie so effective is the way the film is portrayed and told. It is done in complete documentary style, with narration and the whole thing. So, I was, as a young kid, and we have a DVD and a Blu-ray in here. When I saw this, it really felt like I was watching a news program or a documentary. So this movie scared the living shit out of me. Now, it is dated. It is from the 70s, so some things are maybe not quite as effective as, maybe they were when the film came out. But the documentary style really does give it a gritty feel, shot on, low-budget film. I don't know for sure, but I feel like it's a 16 blown up to 35 because it has that grainy sort of Last House on the Left look to it. But yeah, it's no big actors really to speak of here, and that even helps even more because recognizable faces to me make documentary style films less effective. So this is the original sack face killer. I mean, this is before, if I'm remembering this correctly, this is pre Friday the 13th. There is one particular kill in here. I mean, I don't want to get spoilery, but there is one kill in here that freaked me out. Especially being someone who, as a teenager, played in school band. That's all I'm going to say. Watch this film. Town of the Dreaded Sundown. Watch the original. The remake is trash. Alright, so I got this a while back. This is the Shout Factory Candyman Special Edition. I went through the special features and all that stuff and did a quick review of it. But it was kind of cool now just to sort of sit down and soak it in and just watch the movie and enjoy it and see how it holds up. And it, in fact, holds up very well. This is not like a jump scare kind of thing. This is more of a slow burn build on the levels of creepiness, and it just keeps, wrapping more and more and more around you as you watch it. And there's some really good, well done social commentary in here too, which is something that I really love in horror. I think horror films of the 70s and 80s did social commentary the best of any genre of film, especially horror films of the 70s. Now, this one obviously is of the 90s, but the social commentary that's here works. It talks about the Cabrini Green area where much of the film is set. Talks about gentrification and that kind of thing, and racism and classism and all that stuff is in here, but not like pounding you in the face. And it doesn't take the place of the scares. This movie obviously made Tony Todd, I believe is his name. His last name is Todd. I think it's Tony Todd. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank on this. It made his career, and this is based off of a Clive Barker story. So, very cool movie. Very creepy and effective. Now we get to a film that is my favorite soundtrack of any film in history. Now, that is those are big words, but I'm an AC/DC fan. I love their music. Their music is really what began my musical career. I played music for a long time, played guitar, and I learned because of AC/DC. So when they do a soundtrack to a movie, it's a big deal for me. And this is Maximum Overdrive. This is the Vestron Collector's Edition. It's a nice transfer of this film. Basically, this has Emilio Estevez in it, and a Stephen King story directed by Stephen King, actually, too. So a comet passes too close to the Earth and causes all the machinery in the Earth or on the planet to come to life, trucks in particular. And he finds himself with a group of people holed up in a gas station, providing gas to the trucks so they can continue to run. It's not particularly scary, really, but it's highly entertaining. Even the bad dialogue, and there's some bad dialogue in here. The line that is my favorite in here in particular is when the words Maximum Overdrive actually get used in the film. So yeah, this is not a good film, but it is a fun film. And there's some gore. There's some trucks killing people, and not just trucks, other mechanical devices too. One particularly hilarious kill involves an arcade. But the AC/DC soundtrack is really good. It's basically a greatest hits of the band and a bunch of cool instrumental stuff. And special effects are fun. It's just a really fun cheeseball horror movie, sci-fi horror film. So if you haven't seen it, it's highly recommended. Maximum Overdrive. Love that film. Now, I watch this almost every 31 Days of Halloween, and I shouldn't. I should really focus harder on newer things or different things, but this just feels like Halloween to me. This just, when I think about things that scare me and that I love, I have to pull out the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The Tobe Hooper classic, not any of the crap remakes, none of that. To me, there are really only 2 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, and that is the first one, this one, and the second one. And those are very different movies. This one is gritty, again, almost documentary style, and a little too in-your-face and realistic. The second one is much more campy and silly, but I love it for that too. But anyway, so loosely based on, I believe this is loosely based on Ed Gein. I love Tobe Hooper's story about how he came to this idea of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was, he was in a store, a retail, like a hardware store maybe, I don't remember what kind of store exactly, but it was very crowded. He was getting frustrated, and he saw these chainsaws hanging on the wall, and he just began to imagine pulling one off the wall and just cutting his way out of the store. Well, that is the birth of this movie. So the thing that's great about this movie, it's like Halloween and a few others from the era that are known as truly disturbing and gory when they're not. There's not a lot of blood and guts in this film. Very little. But what is there is done so effective. And that 16 to 35, film, it makes it super grainy and feels more like TV in a way and more like documentary. And it looks hot. It is hot when they're filming. He wanted it to appear hot, and it comes through on this film. This is a beautiful film, and that's a weird thing to say, but it really is. I really need a new version. I need this in 4K because I think the HDR color would be pretty amazing to bring in that sepia. And it's here. It's on this. This is a Dark Sky Films release, and it's here. But I would love to see this in 4K. This is a classic. Can't call yourself a horror film if you haven't seen this film. All right. So I'm going to do these 2 at the same time because I kind of had this planned. The Strangers and The Strangers Pray at Night. This is a weird little franchise here. 2 very different films, but 2 effective films in and of themselves. So The Strangers is a home invasion piece. Very scary. Liv Tyler, Scott Speedman are in this. This is the original Blu-ray release. There is a Shout Factory release that I want to upgrade to. There's not a lot to say without getting too spoilery, except that this is a home invasion thing. One family is invading the home of a couple, and it's terrifying. The sequel is kind of the same thing, except it's a family that are traveling, and I believe they're in a cabin. And at one point, there's one particular lengthy scene that happens around a swimming pool that is really terrifying. That is one of my favorites. This has Christina Hendricks in it from Mad Men, and that is probably why I really watched this to begin with, is because I loved her in Mad Men, and I love her in this film too. Effective, scary. This one is better. The first one is the best, but this one is a lot of fun, has some great scares in it. I highly recommend. And this is a good double feature. You're going to watch one on a Tuesday and one on Wednesday or something. All right, so you guys saw me. I shared this with you guys when I originally picked it up. This is Hell Night. This is a Shout Factory Special Edition release. I actually got it with a slip, which is kind of cool. It's a 1981 film starring Linda Blair, who you should know as Reagan from The Exorcist, a little girl. This is her in her early 20s, in the heyday of slasher films. And that's what this is. Basically, it's the typical, group of kids are going to get hazed by a fraternity, and they have to spend the night in this scary house. Little do they know that there is something in here that's going to, do them some damage. This movie, it's not that gory. If you're looking for something that's super gory, you're going to be a little bit disappointed, because this is one of those films that kind of cuts away from the gore. Like, you see the knife going, and then they cut and whatever. But I love it because Linda Blair is just so charismatic. She's so much fun to watch in this film, and it feels like a time capsule. of a certain type of film that just doesn't get made now. It's like the really formulaic slasher film, but it's beautifully shot a lot with candlelight, which is kind of a big deal. It's a very artistic approach to making a low budget slasher film. They really put some love into the look of it, and you can see that with their rack focuses and like I said, the lighting and stuff. So if you like Linda Blair, this is a must watch. Another movie I saw in repeats as a little kid on HBO, and the ending, the very last shot of this thing is iconic. The rest of the film might not be. Last shot of this movie is iconic. Alright, so I just got this one. I'm going to be writing a review of this one. This is part of the Paramount Presents line. I'm going to do a pickup video, and this might reappear, so I'm not going to get too much into the packaging, but this is The Haunting, 1999 film starring Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Basically, Liam Neeson plays a scientist who's doing a study, and he tricks all these people to come to this house where he can study them over the weekend, but the house is haunted. This is loosely based on The Haunting of Hill House, but they couldn't get the rights to the book, so when I say loosely, I mean really loosely. So I haven't seen this movie since it came out, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's not good. This probably will not stay on my shelf. You know, we talk about curating film. It's not good. I did not like it. I love Catherine Zeta-Jones, you know, and I generally like Liam Neeson and things, but I just found it kind of boring, to be honest with you. It just wasn't good. So, all right, last movie that will get us caught up to October 15th, 2020, which is today as I'm filming this, and I'll watch something new tonight, and we'll start a new list, is Drag Me to Hell. This is a Sam Raimi film. This was kind of what he did after he stepped out of the Spider-Man franchise or was booted out of it, or however that happened. This was his film, and this was a return to form for Sam Raimi. It's creepy and scary and hilarious. I mean, only Sam Raimi can make a handkerchief scary, and he did in this film. And it's gross. There's a gross scene in it. I mean, this movie is unbelievably fun. If you're going to do a Sam Raimi marathon, watch the Evil Dead movies and watch this, because this falls right in line with those. I don't want to get too much into it because I really don't want to spoil this for you if you haven't seen it. Basically, a young woman gets cursed by a witch and has to pay the consequences of that, and you know, she tries to get the spell broken that's on her. I mean, that's essentially the core of it, but it's visually arresting, well acted, tons of fun, good scares, and like I said, good comedy. So that's it. So that is where I am with my 31 days of Halloween so far. Hit me up in the comments, like, subscribe, share. Until next we meet, pull something cool off the shelf, share with your friends and family, and remind them why physical media is the best way to watch films and TV. I'll see you guys on the next one.